Hello and welcome to our webinar, and thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of our second report into what workers want. By way of a brief introduction, I'm Gail Blake and I'm joined by Diane Ward, Head of Resourcing at Amy. After taking you through the key findings of What Workers Want report, I'll pass you over to Diane, who will be discussing Amy's candidate journey. Just a reminder, you can type questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end going through these. Before we start the main presentation, I'd just like to remind you that you can share your feedback and engage with What Workers Want conversation on social media. Simply follow us on Twitter @HayesNews or connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn and use the hashtag #WhatWorkersWant. This year, What Workers Want reports insight into what makes a successful candidate journey. These findings will help employers understand their strengths and weaknesses throughout the applicant journey and identify where they are at risk of losing talent. To put together this report, we carried out an extensive survey in February of this year, which received 14,000 responses from both candidates and employers across the UK. The survey was completed by professionals from a variety of organisation types, both across the public and private sector. Our report specifically focuses about the applicant experience, what attracts and detracts someone from applying, accepting a role, across 4 key stages: search, apply, decide, and join. Search. The search stage includes the role of brand awareness and the employer value proposition, applicant job search preferences, the information included in job ads, and the ease of finding information about the employer. Apply. The apply stage includes applicants' experiences when applying for a job, the applicant's method and requirements, the time it takes, more about this later, and the feedback and communication received after applying. Decide. The decide stage includes the structure and experience of interviews, screening and interacting with the hiring organisation, interview feedback, the compliance process, and the offer process and negotiation. Join. The join stage includes induction and the onboarding process prior to and after joining the hiring organisation and the length of these processes. Just as a point, this particular slide that you're seeing now is actually a 2-page fold-out in the report itself, and I think I would really encourage you to get the actual original report as well, because I think this one looks fantastic in it. We've identified the key factors that determine success at each of these stages of the applicant journey, looking at what applicants believe to be the roadblocks throughout. By using the insights from this report, employers can compare their applicant journey against the expectations and experiences of applicants, identify weaknesses, and focus on attraction strategies and future investment where it matters most. Overall, we hope this will give you a competitive advantage in the war for talent. In today's intensely competitive market, the challenge isn't just finding prospective candidates, it's keeping them engaged throughout the entire applicant process. Based on our research, 63% of applicants at one time or another across the 4 stages I mentioned earlier have been deterred from completing their application. The main contributing factor has been a generally poor applicant experience. Therefore, the key message I want you to take away this year is that first impressions matter more today than ever before. Applicants are judging all aspects of the employer and organisations all of the time. In addition to having a very high level of expectation on how long a process should take, more on this later, how easy it should be to apply, applicants have certain expectations along each stage of the journey. So employers need to ensure they are pitching these correctly in order to avoid losing talent. But our report finds that employers and organisations aren't necessarily aware of the problems along their own applicant journey. As we can see, there is an overall 10% gap in satisfaction between employers and the applicants, as you can see on this slide. 65% of employers think they're offering a good or excellent experience. By contrast, only 55% of professionals who've applied for a job in the past 2 years rated their applicant experience as good or excellent, with the rest giving either a very poor or neutral rating. So there's a clear mismatch here. And could it be that employers are largely unaware of how vital those first impressions are? Given that today we're talking about construction and property, it's worth mentioning that within construction and property, this mismatch is even bigger. 58% of applicants in construction and property would rate their experience as good or excellent, whereas the construction and property employers themselves are rating it as 71%. So that's leaving a 13% gap in satisfaction across our sector, which is clearly greater than the 10% across the UK. Looking more closely into this, the applicant's rating of quality of experience declines, as you can see, from the search through to the final stage join. However, if you look at the employer line, which is the one in orange, they do not really fall away as much. It only declines by 5% from search to join. Overall, decide and join are the worst performing stages of the applicant journey, with 16 and 14% employer versus applicant sentiment mismatch. This story continues in our construction and property sector. The search stage and apply stage has a 7% mismatch, but then at decide and join stages, these mismatches grow to 17 and then 19% respectively. Poor experience do not end when the applicant starts a job, and this is impacting on the retention of the new starters. Just under half of professionals say that they have left a job in the first year because it did not match the expectations formed during the applicant process for construction and property. This is even more. In fact, 29% of professionals in construction and property have said they've left a new role purely because of the onboarding process. Key areas that we need to think about are, with new candidate expectations, are the job advert themselves, training, and the overall cultural fit. So, what do workers want from the applicant journey? They want employers to be transparent and authentic. They want an efficient process and personalised communication and functionality across every stage. They want to feel welcomed. Let's take a closer look and examine each of these points. Today's applicants expect to be able to find out almost everything about an employer before they join. 1 out of 2 professionals wouldn't even consider applying if they can't find all of the information they require. Applicants want to see how an employer will invest in their personal development, their career plan, and whether they have a public commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion, for example. If employers do not make this information easily accessible, then many candidates will be deterred right from the outset of the search stage. When researching prospective employers, candidates are looking for authenticity. So to learn what it's actually like to work for an organisation, applicants turn to both current and ex-workers for first-hand insights. Employers looking to recruit, therefore, need to be in regular do regular audits or brand health checks to ensure that they understand what their applicants and what their ex-employees think of themselves. Interestingly, however, employers don't consider reviewing sites and staff testimonials to be an important part of their candidate attraction strategy. I know this is different at Amy, but in this, we saw that 48% of employers are in the dark about these reviews and say they are unaware of the sentiment of employee feedback online. Applicants are being deterred by the lengthy and inefficient processes and delays in communication. Our findings reveal a clear mismatch between employer and applicant expectations of how long the application process should take. Cumulatively, 71% of candidates would consider abandoning an online application once it has taken 15 minutes. Wow. However, a substantial number of employers, 40%, have an application process lasting longer than this time. Employer websites are providing a disappointing experience for many applicants. 50% of applicants give a neutral to very poor rating of their experience when applying for a job directly on an employer's website or portal. The majority of those who gave these ratings, 72%, blame a lengthy process with too many requirements as the main contributing factor. While we can see that speed of process is important, it's clear communication along the journey that is going to keep the applicants engaged. For example, 57% of applicants say it's important to receive confirmation of moving to the interview stage within a week of the application. Yet, 36% of employers don't meet this expectation. Following the final interview, 58% of applicants expect to hear within 3 days, but a third of employers don't meet this expectation, taking up to a week or even more. 25% of applicants across the UK have accepted a job verbally, but because of the long wait to receive the formal offer, they've accepted another job in the meanwhile. Interesting for us in construction and property, we're obviously an impatient bunch, because this actually increases to 35% of professionals who have accepted another job in the meanwhile while waiting for a formal offer. An overwhelming 95% of construction and property professionals want to receive a written offer within a week of a verbal offer, which is above the 65% across the rest of the UK. Applicants are more likely to apply for a role if the process is easy and provides personalised functionality and communication. According to our findings, applicants want a more personalised functionality than employers currently offer on their career websites. Desirable features include the ability to set up job alerts, start and stop their application, and create a profile. Unfortunately for these applicants, less than a third of the employers have this functionality built into their online portals or career websites. What's more, 41% of employers know that their career sites provide a neutral to very poor experience for applicants, but irrespective of this, over half of UK employers say they are not investing in their career site's functionality as part of their candidate attraction plans for the year ahead. In construction and property, 60% are not investing in their career site's functionality. Despite applicants' expectations of simple and streamlined online processes requiring fewer touch points with the employer, our research shows that applicants still want the option for personal interaction as part of the process. Two-thirds, 69% of applicants, say it's important to them to have a contact person who can provide them status updates on their application process during the apply stage. This rises to 77% during the decide stage, and 89% saying it's important during the join stage. The absence of such a contact person can have a negative impact on the process overall. For example, of those applicants who say they've had a bad experience with an employer's career website, 29% attribute this to not having a contact person available during the apply process. Employer feedback is also highly valued, but not always provided. Over three-quarters, 77% of applicants say that employers are not good at giving feedback after an application was rejected, while 66% of employers do not provide sufficient feedback following an interview, which applicants say to us they want to hear regardless of the outcome. Finally, the human element is so important. Applicants are judging all aspects of the journey, and an unwelcomed first impression can be detrimental. From the way they are greeted in reception to the experience of the office environment, applicants are assessing all interactions with a potential employer. If first impressions are negative or unwelcoming, employers run the risk of losing out on talent. Nearly half, 48% of our applicants say they've been deterred from pursuing a role further due to a negative first impression with the organisation, while 22% have almost been deterred. 64% put this down to an unwelcoming environment, and 44% due to unwelcoming staff in particular. Almost two-thirds, 62% of applicants, want to meet their direct reports during the interview stage, but only 13% of employers offer this opportunity. 59% of applicants want to meet with a recruitment consultant as part of the interview process, and 46% want to meet with potential colleagues as part of the interview process. However, the welcoming process should not stop once the job has been accepted. Once they have joined the organisation, new staff say that the most important part of their induction is to spend time with the team. That's 84%. Yet only 66% of employers prioritise this as a standard part of the induction process. Failure to conduct a thorough and welcoming join process may lead to a loss of a new hire. A third, 33% of those who've left an organisation in the first 12 months say it was because they weren't a good cultural fit. This is so important when you consider that 66% of candidates' single most important consideration is the people and culture of that organisation. So, to sum up, a good applicant journey is key to attraction. However, our research has found that candidates are being deterred from applying due to poor experiences along the applicant journey. They encounter a few common roadblocks, which include meeting with unprepared interviewers. 47% of applicants have been deterred due to a lack of preparation by the interviewer. Negative employee reviews. 61% of candidates have been discouraged from applying to an organisation because of negative employee reviews. The online application process taking longer than 15 minutes. 45% of candidates would be deterred from an online application if it took longer than 15 minutes to complete. Receptionists or staff giving a negative first impression. Nearly 48% of candidates have been deterred from a role from a poor first impression of the organisation, and 44% saying that it was because the receptionist or staff were unwelcoming. So, our recommendations. This is what we would suggest. Number one, speed up the process. As a first step, determine how long it takes to complete each stage of your applicant journey, looking one by one at specific components such as the time it takes to submit an online application or to respond to applicants after the interviews. Using this report, in discussion with your Hays recruitment consultant, benchmark your times against the expectations of the candidate to identify where your process may be falling short of the expectations. As a second step, review the application requirements for the applicants. For example, are you asking for information that is either unnecessary or could be provided at a later stage, therefore speeding up the key points along the journey? Finally, hiring managers and HR teams should work together to create a standard protocol for interviews and applicant communications. Setting up expectations around an acceptable number of interviews and agreed timeframes to provide feedback or updates to applicants will help your organisation deliver a better, more consistent experience. When reviewing your progress, don't forget to review not only the time it takes to complete the process, but what communication is going to the applicant at each interval. Ensure your process is streamlined and efficient and keeps the applicant engaged at each and every step. Suggestion number 2, invest in the online experience of the applicants. While you may not be in a position to invest heavily in the capabilities of your career website or portal, there are some basic candidate expectations that must be met. First, ensure that your website or portal is mobile optimized. Secondly, provide the ability for applicants to start and stop their application and to update their profiles, edit their CVs, and upload additional profiles. Finally, if your applicant portal or site requires multiple steps, ensure it's clear to the applicant throughout the process where they are in that process and how long the rest of it is going to take. Overall, this should better help those applicants to maintain interest until the end of the process. It's also important to note, however, that these basic functionalities only deliver an average experience to the candidate. As a result of advanced options that they will compare, for example, recruitment consultancies or other job boards or even other organisations may offer better functionality. Given the importance of the online experience to candidate attraction and the cost implications of creating an optimal solution, consider perhaps working with a partner such as Hays that can provide these important tools such as advanced online portals and applicant tracking systems, ATSs. Thirdly, create a structured interview process. Aim to create a more standardised interview process across your organisation, starting by auditing your hiring manager's current interview processes. Review elements including interview structures, questioning techniques, and the length and number of hiring managers required. Consider using a third party such as Hays Assessment and Development to develop and support consistent assessment processes. Consider also investing in training and support for interviewers, improving your hiring manager's overall interviewing and questioning techniques. As you look to create an organisation-wide standard, be mindful, however, of the nuances and requirements that pertain to different specialist groups. Consider consulting with an expert to help you understand what techniques are best suited for different type of roles and seniority levels. Further training of hiring managers may be required if they are responsible for hiring for a multitude of specialist areas. Number 4, make employee reviews part of your attraction strategy. The people and culture of an organisation is the most important consideration for applicants when assessing whether or not they'll apply for a new role or not. So to find out if the culture is being promoted by the employer is authentic, applicants are looking to employer review sites for an honest answer. So it's essential to understand what the current sentiment is about your employer brand online. Conduct an employer brand assessment by analysing employer review sites and conduct social media listening exercises. If this assessment is unfavourable, maybe consider building a strategy that encourages current employees to share positive comments about their experiences, while addressing negative feedback by dispelling misconceptions and demonstrating the changes or improvements you're making. Finally, put in place a process to consistently track employee reviews and leverage insights for your employee value proposition marketing programs. Number 5, test your journey. Like any good product, user testing of the applicant journey is key. People, time, processes are all components that have the most influence on whether an applicant could be deterred from completing their application or accepting a role. Do you know what it's like to be a new person walking into your office or workspace? Are your staff welcoming to newcomers? Do you know what people find when they search for your organisation as an employer? Do you know how difficult it is, or it isn't, to apply for a job on your site? You need to be consistently reviewing your process end to end. This report provides a first impression that first impressions really matter. So audit and assess and refine yours to present your organisation consistently in the best light possible to prospective candidates. So you've heard about what makes the ideal applicant journey. How now do you go about benchmarking your candidate experience? We've developed a free online assessment tool to help. The Hays Candidate Journey Diagnostic is an online tool to help organisations improve their candidate experience. This interactive tool allows you to evaluate how strong your candidate experience is against industry-leading best practice across 6 different assessment stages. Based on your self-assessment and specific goals, the tool automatically provides a rating against your answers and creates a personalised report of recommendations on how to take your candidate experience to the next level. This bespoke report will benchmark your candidate experience score to identify what makes a winning candidate experience, how to take your candidate experience to the next level, and areas of priorities, quick wins, and ideas for continuous improvement. Calculate your candidate experience score and discover how to attract the right talent better, faster, and more cost-effectively. You can access this tool on hays.co.uk. There's on the slide you can see there, it's the /candidate experience, and make the improvements you need to achieve a winning candidate experience. Right, that's enough from me. I'm now going to hand over to Diane to talk about her journey with Amy.
Thank you, Gail, and good afternoon, everybody. So a little bit first about Amy. I'm sure most of you know who we are. So we've 19,000 employees working across 4 continents, which makes us a leading supplier of consulting and infrastructure support services, both in the UK and internationally. We've been in business almost 100 years, servicing the communities that we work in. I thought it was important to actually mention our core values because they're the building blocks of how we do things and what's important to us. And it's one of the things that candidates find important. They help us forge strong relationships with our customers, our partners and supply chains, and keep improving our services every day. We do this by putting people first, delivering a great service, and creating better solutions. We work with more than 15 local authorities to help keep towns and cities running smoothly, and we also partner with clients like Highways England, BAA, United Utilities, Network Rail, Ministry of Defence, and many others. We create safer, smarter and sustainable places to live, work and travel by designing, building, maintaining and investing in our country's services and infrastructure. We make a difference, including engineering, facilities management, utilities, and as you can see, transport, environmental services, defence and justice. So we say you're one of 66 million people who's used the service that we are supporting today. Health and safety is very important at Amy. We take an active approach by ensuring that we play a part in looking after each other. Our Target Zero campaign encourages people to speak up if something is unsafe. And we've been recognised with Gold Award for the Royal Society of Prevention of Accidents, the HR Excellence Awards for Most Effective Use of Internal Communications, UK Rail Industry Awards for Workforce Safety, and Investors in People for Health and Safety Champions. Awards such as this, again, are things that candidates might consider really important when they're looking for an organisation to join. So, a little bit about myself. So, I realised from a very early part in my career that I am a problem solver, and I do have two passions. One is unlocking the secret and seeking creative solutions to sourcing great talent for the businesses that I've worked within, and garden design. Not much in common, you would think, really, but they are an interesting combination, and they both draw upon problem-solving skills in a really creative way. Resourcing functions can no longer post and pray. We have become marketeers, and we're forced to deploy a wide range of creative solutions to source and hire the right people. The same could be said for designing a space that provides great personal joy to someone else. It takes time to understand the problem that requires solving and then present a range of creative solutions. When I first studied garden design, I did not believe that my job as a talent acquisition specialist was particularly creative, and I felt that actually my only creative outlet was probably generating a PowerPoint presentation such as you're seeing today. But what I learned with that process is fundamentally the same. You have to listen to and understand the challenges faced and deploy a range of creative solutions. I've worked with organisations in an interim capacity to help solve some of those challenges they have in acquiring the best talent that a company can afford. I've over 16 years' experience working with a wide variety of organisations and a multitude of sectors from financial services, media, engineering, telecoms, and many more. I've worked in-house, part of a centre of expertise. I've delivered contingent labour solutions using a managed service provider or been part of a managed service provider. I have worked on-site as part of an outside service, what you would call recruitment process outsourcing, and I have worked in-house in an agency. So I have experienced talent acquisition from every aspect as a provider, a customer, and a candidate. And what I have found is that the industries differ, but the challenges remain largely the same. Good people are intrinsic to the success of any business. If we don't appeal to our applicant audience, they will choose someone else. So I go to the key findings and the report which Gail has just gone through with you, and I found that very insightful. Like most of us, we're concerned with trying to get the applicant journey right. But what the report identifies is that there is a widening chasm between the experience we think we're providing to applicants and the reality. In every change programme I have delivered, I also seek to look through a hiring manager and applicant lens and always find there are ways of doing better or more efficient ways of doing things. But I recognise we still don't always get it right, and we are capable of making a real miserable applicant experience. I joined Amy in an interim capacity to provide maternity cover, but with a wider remit to evolve their in-house resourcing function. I wanted to share with you today my experience and findings. I'm 6 months into that journey, so I will draw on the parallels of the research provided by Gail and share some of my experiences with you. What you can see in the 4 boxes are really what my key priorities are. I guess one of the first challenges is that Amy has a large and diverse workforce. Due to the nature of the services we provide, around 75% of our workforce provide essential services facing off to our customers. They are our frontline workforce. We're also required to hire people with specialised skills of a technical nature where there is a scarcity, and in the market we have an overheated market. It means we have to work hard to ensure that we are an appealing proposition to future applicants from a wide range of industries and a wider level of expertise to ensure their experience throughout the application process is a positive experience whether they are offered the job or not. My key priorities are to enhance our employer brand and appeal by reinvigorating our employee value proposition, we call it our EVP, and deliver a series of changes to ensure that we live up to that experience. Our ambition is to be a destination employer. I think that's probably the same for most. Some have got it, are in a much better, stronger position at this moment in time, and others are still working on their journey. We at Amy, we're refreshing our employee value proposition. You'll see with the graphics that we have, we developed this in 2015, and it was created primarily for recruitment. So it was for our hard-to-reach groups, our engineers, our graduates, our senior hires. That was around 2015. Amy's restructured since then. We have a different growth strategy, we have a new corporate narrative, new values, and we've separated our consulting arm. We now need a new EVP to resonate with our frontline workforce, as well as our senior technical and niche applicants, to improve our recruitment and retention opportunities. We recognise that there is competition, and we need to ensure that we hire the best quality people and that Amy becomes a destination of choice. So our priority is to develop an EVP that is flexible, relevant to all employees, and has visions by adapting and extending our Grow with Amy, to assess how our employer brand should be revised and what the requirements are to activate it across the employee journey. That was one of our first priorities. If we then look at sort of the application process, a little bit of background for last year, we made 4,500 hires, which is quite substantial. 96% of those hires we hired directly. We had very little agency intervention. You would assume that that's quite a success story when we look at this in isolation. However, by utilising only a very number of small channels, including our own team, we extended out our time to hire, and it was elongated, which demonstrated a shortage of diverse applicants, a smaller than average funnel of applicants to choose from, and ensure we have not done sufficient work in building an attractive enough proposition to select from a wide pool of people. In addition, our time to hire rate would have demonstrated that this is a really poor applicant experience. So we recognised that we needed to address our end-to-end journey. And we have just completed this year a new simplified process. And we've taken it from the point that the hiring manager seeks approval, because they are as important as the applicants in terms of their experience. So from the hiring manager to the onboarding experience. So I guess recognising that the level of ease should be reflective of the type of expertise required for the role, what we're trying to do is not create a one-size-fits-all. Going back to Gail's comments about the 15 minutes is really what applicants are looking for, we recognise that perhaps maybe for frontline roles we could make our processes a little bit more simplistic, but a more thorough process for our highly technical and specialised roles. And that has been some of our consideration in terms of the processes that we've been looking at. The other area of focus has really been on increasing the capacity of the team, and we've rehired to improve capability and also sector expertise. So we have more people with greater levels of expertise, with a view that this will enhance and engage our applicant experience. It means our applicants have people to talk to. We're evolving our technical capability. We have good technology, but we don't necessarily use it to our advantage, and we don't necessarily consider how applicants use the technology, particularly people who require some level of support during the application process. So we're evolving that to make it easier to apply and also to receive swift feedback on their application status, and ensure that our processes are inclusive and reflect the communities we serve. We're reviewing all of our attraction channels, including expanding the use of external agencies. I mentioned earlier that we filled 96% of hires, but we recognise that actually the 4% were probably the critical hires we actually needed, but didn't have the expertise in-house to be able to deliver that. So by broadening our supply chain network and tapping into agencies who can really support us in the future is considered really important, along with looking at our adverts, our visuals, and providing access to stories for applicants when they're considering whether AMY is a destination of choice. The end-to-end improvements are designed to speed up the process and improve the hiring manager and applicant experience. So according to the key findings, 61% of applicants have been discouraged from applying to a job after reading negative reviews online. But what are they looking for when presented with a choice of opportunities and offers, and they're deciding on which organisation will suit? How can we as an industry make this easier? We all use our corporate sites to showcase the things that are important, and at AMY we are clear we welcome people from all backgrounds. But this information is what we want to say about ourselves. We know that the good corporate CSR is important and organisational responsibility fits well with applicants. So having a target zero safety proposition looks very positive from an applicant's perspective. It says quite a lot about the culture of the organisation. The same can be said for ensuring there are a wealth of opportunities for people with disabilities. There are over 6 million people who have a disability or health condition. This is a large pool of talented people who can help us reach our goals if they're supported and empowered to succeed. We have a firm commitment to help ex-service personnel secure careers. And we want to appeal to, as an attractive proposition we want to appeal to attract more women to join us, particularly in the engineering and IT sectors. So those are the things that actually we can control right now. They're on our corporate site. They're the things that we want to say about our organisation. But what we can't control is what is said on Glassdoor, or can we? So all of those images helped an applicant to determine whether they share the same values, gain the same insights into the culture and of AMY. All of the other images have been created by AMY to promote a creative, positive message, but what we are not in control of is what is shared outside of the organisation by past employers. So you see with Glassdoor, there's an opportunity that we are missing. Glassdoor presents an alternative source of information for applicants. It was initially designed as a job board, but actually it's where passive candidates go to look to make a decision about the type of organisation they want to work with. Glassdoor is very powerful. It has 50 million global users every month, and 86% of users use this to decide on a new opportunity. So this is an opportunity that we need not to miss. So what is it that we're doing to make a difference? We're taking control of our profile on Glassdoor. So at the moment, we don't own our profile, and as an organisation, it's something we need to consider. So we're going to tell our story, our EVP, include our photos, which represent the different areas of the business, showcase our identity, advertise our vacancies, and can take control of all of the jobs that we wish to advertise. We're also, in terms of improving the processes, to consider the end-to-end process, and that's making people, once they've made a decision about the organisation, to make them feel welcome when they're joining. We've said it's really important. So what are we working on? So what you can see is just some of the initiatives that we're looking at, making a much swifter offer process, ensuring that people managers have an onboarding checklist. They seem really simple, but actually it's just a reminder of how effective we can be with just some simple tools. Assigning people dedicated contacts so that someone has handoff from recruitment to onboarding and then someone within their team. And small stuff, but really ensuring that kits arrive on time, confirming day one arrangements. Where do you need to arrive? Who do you need to ask for? And are there any parking arrangements? And then ensuring that there are regular reviews. These are just some of the initiatives that we're working on. we're only 6 months into our journey. We haven't finished yet, but I thought I would share my story with how we've achieved so far. Okay, thank you for listening.
Great, thank you. God, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. I would like to open it up now to any questions that we have had. So just in terms of, I've got questions here that people have been asking online. So one of the things that we've got here is, with feedback being so important to construction and property professionals, is it okay to give negative feedback to candidates? This is a specific construction and property one. So do you want to, I mean, I've got some opinions. Do you want to start off with, Diane?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the key is always to give timely, constructive feedback to unsuccessful applicants to ensure that they have a positive experience throughout. And, yeah, really are left with a positive impression. So this goes back to whether you get the job or not.
Yes.
Actually, you should always leave an applicant with a positive experience.
And especially we saw that, didn't we, in the data earlier, that this is important to everybody, but construction and property people want that feedback, and also are more likely, aren't they, to actually accept another job in that week where they haven't had that feedback, whether it be from their online application or from the interview, or not getting their offer, which I thought was quite remarkable, actually. We're obviously all quite impatient, but I think that it's quite, I think it lays the gauntlet down to all of us who are involved in construction property to really ensure that those offer letters, in particular their interview feedback, they go out quickly, so we don't lose those, because we saw that, didn't we, in that slide, that those applicants do drop off so much after the interview.
They do, and in the world of social media, disgruntled applicants can turn to online review sites very quickly, so they can reverse all of the good work that an organisation's done on their corporate site, and we go back to Glassdoor as well. It's very easy to leave something that's quite negative.
So have you asked your employees to actually, because it's obviously one of the recommendations we have is taking ownership of it. You talked about your own experience. Do you encourage your own employees to write on there, or have you actually just left it to just try, have you got intervened at all with that?
So we haven't as yet,
right?
But that is part of the how do we. So for the wider audience, what we noticed when we were looking at Glassdoor was that Amy at this moment in time is recognised as a 3.2. So I understand that's the norm, the average. But then you look at Facebook's Glassdoor, and you look at Google's Glassdoor, and they have done an awful lot in terms of their employee value proposition on there, so they really showcase their organisation and are really encouraging their people to actually use the site effectively. So Glassdoor, anyone who has been an employee in the last 5 years can post information on there. So yes, I mean, it shouldn't be something we enforce, but certainly it should be encouraged. If you've got something good to say, then say it. Because
that was I think one of the findings for me that was the most remarkable was actually how much applicants are looking before they decide to apply. So this idea of the search, I think most of us just think, oh, they know this organisation, they just apply. But to me, it was how much they're looking for information, and they wouldn't even bother applying, for example, if they didn't have a good quality and diversity online statement, or if they weren't able to see what the structure was of their own career path online. And I think that it made me consider a lot as an employer myself, a lot about our own website. Maybe think, oh, goodness me, I know we do it, but it does. I think it challenges all of us, doesn't it? I mean, I think that there was some, as we know, some challenging ones around the 15 minutes of how long the applicant, how long people are prepared to wait. And it did make me actually go and ask our own internal recruiters, well, how long does our application form take? It does take less than 15 minutes, thankfully, but I think that was interesting. So someone else on that 15-minute point, someone has asked, I work in the public sector, our application process is really long, and I know for a fact that it takes more than 15 minutes to complete. I don't see this changing anytime soon. As we recently updated our portals, how can I ensure that we meet candidate expectations and avoid losing our top talent? Do you have got any thoughts on that? Because I know we've discussed this 15-minute thing, haven't we?
We have, and it's I guess it's really open for debate, because there's I guess we really have to be careful, and it goes back to making life easy. So I take us back a number of years, I mean, back to my earlier days, I suppose, when people would see an advert in a Sunday supplement,
or a trade journal.
And you would go to great lengths to prepare your application, and you would send it off to the post. And if you were in a personnel department, I'm showing my age here, personnel department, what you would receive is probably in the region of about 15 to 20, and if you were really lucky, for 40, 50 applicants. What we recognise now, and the challenge we have to making it too easy, is that it is so easy to apply online in your lunch break. And that then poses a different challenge for recruiters in that actually how do they sift out the people that are genuinely capable of doing that role? And I suppose, so I guess there needs to be a balance, and it's what I was considering in the applicant experience is that there are certain roles that actually we need to make it a lot easier for, particularly with our frontline roles, and there are roles that are technically we need to be able to assess and be able to identify the candidates that meet that criteria relatively quickly. So it's now not uncommon to receive 100, 200 applicants for a role, and so, yes, I think sometimes reducing the time frame might actually have a detrimental impact to the applicant journey because we have too many applications. So it's a difficult one, it really is.
I mean, I guess what again stood out to me was this key point of contact person, and I guess in answer to the person who's asked this question, I would say that if you have a contact person who can hold your, or at least you could speak to, hold your hand through that process, especially if it's quite a complicated application form, you know, almost interpreting it when they say this, they mean this, then I think that would help to keep that person engaged, because obviously it is expensive to do it, we understand that, but I would probably say that's probably what I would suggest. Or, you know, if you know your own portal is quite complicated and convoluted, like we said earlier, you know, we work with a lot of public sector organisations, and we actually, although they have their own site, we actually do their campaigns for them, because obviously the amount of technology that we have is so advanced, it just means we can actually sift through those candidates really, really quickly. So if it really is impossible to improve it or to provide a contact person, I'd probably say people like ourselves can absolutely help with that one. So I think we've got probably time for one more question. So this is interesting, because we're coming to the, well, no, a lot of people have got children sitting A-levels or GCSEs and finishing at the university. Do you, obviously there are features, so do you have any particular tips on improving the applicant journey when it comes specifically to graduates or people maybe, or I guess the second question, do you change it at all based on I don't know, the demographic of the people you're trying to attract?
Well, we certainly do. So at Amy, we have a graduate program, but it is the graduate process depends on whether it's a technically specialised graduate role, or whether it's a business role. So it's a slightly different process. It also is very different to our standardised recruitment process for all other roles. So we take our graduates through an assessment centre. So it's quite a lot of rigour, quite thorough. The feedback we have from the candidates is that they really enjoy the process. And I think graduates today expect to go through a lot of rigour. So I think they want to really understand the type of organisation. So for them it's really important. So they're investing a couple of years on a programme. They're then hoping that they're going to be offered a position at the end of it. And so for them, seeing the organisation, so going through a first stage assessment, which is usually an online, so we look at it from a psychometric perspective, and then taking them through an assessment gives them a real opportunity to see us as an organisation and meet some of the people that they will be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, to ask questions, for them to challenge us, and for us to really challenge to make sure that we have the right people. So in Amy, we bring in the region of 200 graduates a year.
Wow.
So it's quite sizable.
Okay, fab. So thank you for that. I mean, what's interesting to me talking about the different, about graduates, but actually all the different demographics is in the actual, what we've been summarising here, effectively a report that's 60 pages long, right?
Yes.
So I think what's really interesting I found about the report was actually how much it does segment and it cuts the data so you can actually see how you can attract applicants from all the different demographics, which I found really interesting. On that note then, I will probably say I hope that you found, to everybody who's listening, that this was a useful insight. I'm really sorry if I wasn't able to, we weren't able to answer all the questions. But I hope you understand a bit more about what applicants want from employers, and then this will help you to improve your applicant journey. As I mentioned, this is actually a report. You know, I've just summarised a 60-page report. So please, you know, we want our consultants will be coming out, visiting you with copies of this guide, and please be aware that you can also download it from our website. And thank you so much for joining us, both myself and Diana, both on LinkedIn. Feel free to find us, to connect us, and please give us some feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.